Dialectical Behaviour Therapy Skills Training, or DBT for short. So how can it help? Well, it can help you to learn some new skills, to change behaviours and think about how we react and respond to situations, to feel better about some things that we do, improve our relationships, learn the art of acceptance and letting go in order to move forward, and to raise our awareness and to feel as if we're more aware of what's going on around us, and then feel as if we've got more control then of what's going on. The first step in any kind of change process is about taking responsibility, and that includes taking responsibility to work on your problems and your difficulties, to work hard on it because you want to improve. You're obviously listening to these clips because you want to change something about your life, something about the way you respond to things. So you want to improve, but remember that it is really hard work, and to be kind to yourself, and that any change is difficult. So yeah, appreciating that it's really, really hard, but you're here and you want to do it for a reason. That previous slide might have generated a little bit of discomfort or a little bit of a griping feeling in you, because you might be sat there thinking, well, I didn't create these problems, I didn't do these things to me, I'm just responding in a certain way. And that is completely, true, and we appreciate that and understand that. However, you have to solve these difficulties anyway. Nobody else is going to do this for you. Nobody else is going to help you to change unless you want to change yourself, and unless you're willing to put that effort in time into doing that. So you want things to be different. So we have to hold the two. Yes, you didn't create your difficulties and your problems. However, you have to solve them anyway. So ultimately, regardless of what's gone on before, you are responsible for what you say and what you do in any given situation. We want to be able to deal with strong emotions and manage emotions in a non-harmful way. Not always acting on strong emotions, handling emotions enough to still be able to do what it is that you want to do, and being able to focus on something even when you're feeling a strong emotion. So how can you still manage, and how can you get through? So you might be listening to this thinking, well, that sounds fantastic, sign me up, how do I do this, and what is it going to involve? Well, mindfulness skills training is split into 4 sets of skills. So there's mindfulness, there's emotion regulation, which means dealing with feelings, distress tolerance, coping with really distressing feelings, and interpersonal effectiveness, which is exploring relationships, how we get along with other people. Mindfulness is about learning how to focus on the present moment. So quite often our minds are trying to pull us back to memories or thoughts or something about the past or what's been, what's happened, or the other way, we're worrying about the future, we're trying to predict the future, we're trying to imagine what's coming when we've got no idea. But our brains are kind of always off in a different time, and we're very rarely present in the current moment, and very rarely observing what we're experiencing right now, right here, like I say, in the present. So mindfulness is about learning how to be more present, how to be more observant of our thoughts and our judgments and our opinion, and kind of noticing those things rather than them just happening to us and we respond in an emotional way. If we notice and pay attention and are able to kind of have a bit more control, then we can do something differently with those experiences. So you might have heard people describe it as a bit of an untrained puppy. Our mind is an untrained puppy, and it just goes off, and it's like, sniffing a half-eaten sandwich on the floor, or it's doing this and this and this. And actually what we want is it to be kind of a bit of a mature dog that can walk alongside us and observe these things without needing to respond to them. So we talk about finding our wise mind. So mindfulness is a skill that we have to practice each day. A bit like a workout for the brain, really. Emotion regulation module unpicks emotions, it names them, it helps us to understand them in more detail, because if you're able to identify emotions and understand them, then you're able to do something different with your response. You're able to reduce the intensity of that emotion or change a situation that has prompted painful and wanted emotions. It can also reduce the likelihood of being able to fall into that emotional mind. And there's a skill called cheese, which will be explained in another video, but that's just a tease for you. But it's about how to manage really difficult emotions. Distress tolerance is sometimes called crisis survival skills, and it's quite often because the amount of distress and the most painful feelings that we have to experience usually come up when there's some sort of crisis. So it's about learning how to tolerate painful events, urges, emotions. You know, when you can't make it better straight away, you can't escape a situation, there's nothing you can do about it, but you have to, right here, right now, you have to tolerate what is going on and that painful emotion that is kind of come upon you. So reality acceptance skills as well is part of that. So looking at reducing suffering by accepting and living a life that's not the life maybe that you want right now, but we have to accept it as it is now in order to then change it in the future. And learning to back away from addiction, because we quite often we do things to manage very difficult feelings that might also be unhelpful and that might actually keep things going without intending to, but we can often try to manage difficult feelings by actually making things worse. So we'll explore some of that as well during distress tolerance skills. Interpersonal effectiveness can also be called the relationship module, because it looks at all things to do with relationships, and that's communication skills and assertiveness skills. They're all kind of interweaved within it. So it explores how to deal with conflict within relationships, how to get what you want and need, saying no to unwanted requests and demands, how to build your self-respect and how to keep your self-respect, because quite often within relationships you're pushed and pulled into positions where, you know, you can do things that lose your self-respect and you think, oh, I've made a right show there. So it's how to build your self-respect, but how to keep it as well. How to make new friendships and keep them, but also how to end destructive relationships, because quite often we can find ourselves within relationships that really have a massive impact on the way that we feel, and it's about how do we let some of those go and how do we end them. And we'll explore walking the middle path, acceptance of others, and change within ourselves. So that all comes under the interpersonal effectiveness skills group. In life, our options are limited as to what we do, but there are options and there are choices. And it's important to remember that we always have choices, and the skills training is a strategy to give you more options and more choices of how to manage situations. So we can choose to solve problems. We can learn how to feel better or differently about a problem, you know, looking at it from a different perspective or reframing a situation so we feel differently about it. We can tolerate the problem, so we can learn how to almost buckle down and just let it pass and learn how to manage that feeling and hoping that, you know, something will change. Or we can choose to stay miserable. We can do things that make the situation worse, and keep us feeling as if we're stuck and that there is no way out. So there are always options and there are always choices, but the skills training aims to give you more options and more choices so that you feel as if you've got a bit more power. So some people experience emotions differently to other people. That's just a given. But why is that the case? So the biosocial theory of emotion dysregulation unpicks that a little bit, and it talks about how some people are just born a bit more vulnerable to, you know, biologically experiencing emotions in a different way. So they can just be born more sensitive than other people. they can detect subtle emotional differences within an environment that other people they're just oblivious to. They've got no idea. So some people walk into a room and they can just feel emotion in a room. It's electric to them. They can just pick it up and sense it. So they're more sensitive to that. They can experience emotions more often, completely out of the blue. The intensity of the emotion that they feel can be kind of felt to a different level than somebody else. So people say, it's hit me like a ton of bricks. And their emotions might last longer as well. They might stick around a bit longer, whereas other people can just brush things off and kind of, roll with it, and it's passed them by, whereas other people are still kind of thinking about things and feeling those feelings that they've experienced. Often what people do in a response to emotion, their action following the experience of an emotion can be very biologically driven. So people talk about feeling as if they're driven by their impulses, or they do things without thinking, and they find it really hard to stop and restrain themselves from doing certain things. So they can get themselves into pickles when they don't mean to, or they feel like their actions have come out of nowhere and they've just responded impulsively. They find it very hard to be effective, so their moods can get in the way of organising themselves to achieve their goals. And they feel like they can't control their behaviours because they're very, very strongly linked to their moods and their emotions. So that can be, part of their makeup, but it's also something that you can learn to change, and you can learn how to respond differently to those feelings and those emotions that are felt, so you don't have to be driven by them. I'm not discounting that it's not difficult or tough by any means, but it is something that you can work on and that you can train hard to kind of do differently. So the biosocial theory sort of says you are the way that you are. However, you can change some of the ways that you react and respond, and you can learn how to cope better, how to manage things differently. So, we've got to balance the two things. Yes, you are this way, and some of that is, biologically driven, and it's about how you were raised, etc., etc. But actually, you can also learn to do some things differently as well. So we're holding those two different positions.